I'll call upon Dr. Sharat Chandra to talk about anticoagulation during PCI.
Good morning, everybody. Today we talk about anticoagulation during PCI because this is one area which is kind of unconquered in relation to PCI. PCI has become fairly safe compared to the times when we were beginners. The stents have come, so many new antiplatelet agents have come, the thrombotic complications have come down markedly, the stent thrombosis has come down markedly. But one area which continues to tease the interventional cardiologist and then trouble the patient significantly, so much so that it can lead to mortality, is the bleeding complications. Bleeding complications are an independent risk factor for subsequent mortality in patients with ACS and in those undergoing PCI, representing a hazard equivalent to or greater than that for MI. Therefore, any measure, for example, radial route for PCI, which can reduce the bleeding complication is more than welcome. So now let us look at anticoagulation during PCI, which is an important area, and that is the main reason for the bleeding complications. Why do bleeding complications lead to increased mortality? The reasons are several. The bleeding can be in a very tactically important area like the intracranial site and can be by itself fatal. The direct effects of volume depletion, which can result in hypotension, ischemia, arrhythmia, heart failure and shock. And then a very important thing is, at the drop of a hat, many of us, particularly the less experienced doctors, interventional cardiologists and the junior doctors who are manning the ICUs, the moment somebody has a bleeding complication, they are ready to give him transfusion. And it is the transfusion that is probably today believed by everybody that it is the transfusions which bring in more problem than relief to the patient. The transfusions bring in old blood cells. The RBCs in them do not traverse through the small arterioles and capillaries because their inability to deform to the capillaries, and therefore the oxygen supply to the tissues is reduced by the old blood that is transfused. Transfusion can bring in what is called TRIM, which is otherwise called transfusion related immunomodulation, and then there can be vasoconstriction, inflammation and any number of disadvantages. I can go on narrating them. So transfusions we know are bad for these patients. And then a very important thing, something which we cannot forget, is the moment bleeding complication occurs, many of us force ourselves to stop the antiplatelet drugs which are being given to the patient. And this stopping of the antiplatelet agents is another thing that in bringing thrombotic complications. And for all these reasons, bleeding complications are a very, very unwelcome complication of PCI. Now, what are the different agents used and what is their effect on the various bleeding complications? The age-old thing is unfractionated heparin. Next came low molecular weight heparins, fondaparinux, the the factor 10A antagonist, the pentasaccharide. Then the direct thrombin inhibitors, on which we will be delving in greater detail, and then we can talk briefly about the newer agents. Now, low molecular weight heparins, the most studies is enoxaparin in the setting of PCI. Basically, enoxaparin or the other low molecular weight heparins are acting antagonistic more to factor 10A than to factor 2 in the ratio of 4:1. The greater specificity to act against factor 10A. The problem with enoxaparin is the efficacy of the agent cannot be easily monitored like by doing ACT on the spot in the cath lab. Some of the old disadvantages of the unfractionated heparins are still there, like bleeding complications can occur, and then particularly important is the interaction with platelets. The platelet factor 4 continues to inhibit the low molecular weight heparins also, and the low molecular weight heparins also to an extent lead to aggregation of the platelets. Therefore, the old disadvantages of the unfractionated heparin are not gone with low molecular weight heparin. And bleeding complications, once they occur, unlike heparin where you can give a protamine and reverse the effect, the ability of protamine to do this is only partly done. So the effects of bleeding complications are not completely taken care of by low molecular weight heparins. The Synergy trial has not clearly shown that, it's a very big trial, 25,000 patients, has not clearly shown that low molecular weight heparins are better than the unfractionated heparin as far as ischemic and bleeding complications are concerned. Extract TIMI-25 in fact showed a slightly increased bleeding risk. The STEEPLE trial in the low dose arm, the low dose arm was brought in to reduce the bleeding complications, and then it showed increased mortality, so much so that the low dose arm of the STEEPLE trial was abandoned. For all these reasons, the low molecular weight heparins, which have been tried in PCI in all these NICE 1, 2, 3, 4 trials, has not really caught on. Fondaparinux was brought in thinking that it will be a much better agent to reduce the bleeding complications. It is a specific agent to act against factor 10A with very minimal action against factor 2A, the thrombin, no effect on thrombin, needs antithrombin for its action like the unfractionated heparins. The Oasis 5 trial is an important trial, and it showed increased catheter related thrombosis, and therefore Oasis 6 showed actually higher mortality. Therefore, the ACC/AHA has modified the guidelines which were given earlier and said that alone Fondaparinux should not be used for patients who are undergoing PCI, and if the patient is on Fondaparinux for reasons of ACS, you again give anticoagulation by unfractionated heparin during PCI. Therefore, it is not recommended for PCI alone. So today, what is the real agent which is an alternative to anticoagulation by the standard unfractionated heparin? And it is now very clear that the agent today we are talking about is bivalirudin. Bivalirudin, these do not need a plasma factor like antithrombin 3. This is by definition a direct thrombin inhibitor. It inactivates both the free fluid form as well as fibrin-bound thrombin, and the effect on thrombin is direct and with high affinity and specificity. The interaction with platelets is not there at all. Platelet factor 4 does not act against the bivalirudin, and bivalirudin does not lead to platelet aggregation. These are very important advantages of bivalirudin over and above unfractionated heparin. Now, 3 important trials, we all have read them during our all these years, and younger doctors here would have read them during DM. The REPLACE 2 trial is one of the important trials. It's a landmark trial, and this trial has actually compared during elective PCI as well as during in patients with acute coronary syndromes undergoing in large number of hospitals, a very big multinational trial, and it has shown clearly that the bleeding complications are markedly reduced by bivalirudin arm, in the bivalirudin arm. Unfortunately, a translation of this reduction of bleeding complications into reduction of mortality has not been demonstrated in REPLACE 2 trial. The reasons we are not clear, we are going to see it soon. The ACUITY is the next trial, which again is a very large trial of 13,000 plus patients, and it tried, this is one trial where they tried bivalirudin alone as well as bivalirudin with 2B3A blocker inhibitors, 2B3A blockers, of course along with UFH or LMWH plus GP inhibitors, and once again here the bleeding complications have markedly been reduced. This ACUITY is done in obviously acute coronary syndrome patients. There are no chronic stable angina patients in this, and although once again a reduction of bleeding complications has been shown, reduction in mortality has not been demonstrated in the ACUITY trial. So now we come to the most important trial in relation to bivalirudin, that is the Horizon AMI trial. Now, the Horizon AMI trial is probably the most landmark trial. It is tried in acute MI patients in primary PCI, and this is one area where the role of bivalirudin has been clearly demonstrated. Now, this is the flow chart of Horizon AMI trial. All of you have seen it. On one side is unfractionated heparin with 2B3A blocker, and the other side is bivalirudin monotherapy, no 2B3A blockers, but the patients were given 2B3A blockers only if there is a large intraluminal thrombus is demonstrated. And these patients, of course, are also, it is a 2:2 design study. They also tried bare metal stent versus Taxus stent, but we need not bother about the results of that now. And then this is, of course, the dose that is used in bivalirudin is standard 0.75 microgram per kg IV, followed by 1.75 milligram per kg per hour. And then there is no titration with ACT. And once the procedure is over, it is the infusion is stopped, and 2B3A inhibitors are given only if felt very essential by the operator. Aspirin and clopidogrel are given. One thing they have done is the clopidogrel, which is given in the loading dose, has not been very clearly followed in this, and we will see the effect of that very soon. Now, if you see this chart, the results, it's difficult to look at the results in this chart, but basically the blue is, the green is the non-bivalirudin arm, whichever it is, and the lower one, the red color, is the bivalirudin monotherapy. And in most of the areas, the bleeding complications, myocardial infarction in the short term and long run, and so on, all of them are reduced. The only issue in relation to bivalirudin in the Horizon AMI trial is that there is a slight increase in the incidence of stent thrombosis in the first 24 hours. Now, why this has occurred is not very clear, but it has occurred. But over the course of next few days, the stent thrombosis incidence has leveled off, and at the end of 30 days, actually stent thrombosis incidence is lower in the bivalirudin arm. And the mortality at the end of 3 years, at the end of 1 year, at the end of 30 days are all been shown to have reduced mortality. That's why the bivalirudin is one agent which has been shown clearly that mortality can be reduced in the Horizon AMI trial. The early increase in stent thrombosis with bivalirudin alone may be explained by ADP-induced platelet activation before maximal thienopyridine blockade. They have not given adequate time duration. They used clopidogrel, and for this reason, they feel that that might be responsible. And in the final 3-year report from the Horizon AMI, initial treatment with bivalirudin alone resulted in a significant reduction of non-CABG related major bleeding, reinfarction, and all-cause mortality. Okay, and if you see the next slide, Reisen et al. In a very important publication in European Heart Journal, I think about 2.5 years back, have done a retrospective analysis of patients given bivalirudin in the United States. They collected the entire data from US and published it in European Heart Journal, and they showed that there is a 33% reduction in blood transfusions and 49% reduction in hospital mortality. This is a retrospective analysis, but it has its own value. Then ISAR React 3 came, and ISAR React 4 came, that's not included here, but both of them have shown significant reduction of bleeding complication. Bivaflow Registry of India, which was published in Indian Heart Journal some time back, 439 patients, and they showed very little bleeding complication of 0.9%. It is a registry. Now, which patients will you really use bivalirudin? If somebody asks me, I will say the patients who are most prone for bleeding complications are the one I would use. The old and underbuilt female patient is probably the best case for using bivalirudin for PCI. Low body weight, we know, is a predictor of increased bleeding complications and increased mortality. If the patient had a old stroke or TIA, it is a definite case. If the patient for some reason has an active peptic ulcer, we had one patient like that who had very recent upper GI bleed and presented with a severe acute coronary syndrome, and when we had to do that, we used bivalirudin while of course giving pantoprazole like agents, and the patient did not have any bleeding complication. Recent upper GI bleed, patients with CKD with modification of dose of bivalirudin are very good candidates for bivalirudin therapy, because we know that they are more prone for bleeding complication. This is again a slide. Just look at it carefully. These 3 arms, where everywhere they compared from the Horizon AMI data that whether it is a low risk patient or an intermediate risk patient or a high risk patient, everywhere bivalirudin scores over the unfractionated heparin arm. The new agents which are in development are the novel heparins M118. There are so many agents, and then there is one Reg1 drug antidote pair which has come. This has come about 1 year back in NEJM. It is a factor 9 antagonist, and then you give the drug during PCI, and once the PCI is over, you give its antidote, and it is a study. It is a drug which is very promising. Oral factor 10 antagonists are coming. Oral direct thrombin antagonists are coming. Votamixaban tried in SEPIA trial. I was also party to this trial. So many agents are coming. And one last question, if you have 1 minute, is why bivalirudin is not so popular if the data is so strong? One may ask this question. One of the main reasons is bivalirudin is very popular in United States, but not used in Europe at all. In India, of course, many interventional cardiologists who have some experience would like to tilt towards bivalirudin in patients who have higher risk for bleeding complication. The reason in Europe is they started using radial angioplasty, radial route for angioplasty in a big way many years back. In US, it has taken off very late. And in Europe, they started feeling that if you use radial route, there is no need for bivalirudin-like drug. The bleeding complications are less. Is this really correct? Now, look at this particular slide. Does radial route make bivalirudin redundant? The answer is actually very clearly no. This is a JAG 2011 publication. It's actually JAG Intervention 2011 by Verriud. He analyzed the pooled data of REPLACE-2 ACUITY and Horizon AMI data and from the RAISINS data, and he showed clearly that the bleeding complications should be divided into two, excess site bleeds and non-excess site bleeds. The excess site bleeds are obviously reduced in radial route. We have very little excess site bleeds in radial route. Therefore, in that sense, bivalirudin is not required. But the non-excess site bleeds, like intra-abdominal bleeding or intracranial bleeding, etc., they are not reduced by radial route. They remain the same. In fact, that is one of the reasons in rival study, although they used radial route, they could not show a reduction in mortality. Because the non-excess site bleeds, if you want them to be reduced, you need to use some agent other than heparin to reduce them. And therefore, there is a role, even if you use radial route, for using bivalirudin. Thank you very much.